Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Kyle Mox. I am Associate Dean for National Scholarships Advisement at Arizona State University, and I am the campus liaison for the Goldwater Scholarship. I am also the director of the Office of National Scholarships Advisement, which advises not just on Goldwater Scholarship, but on dozens and dozens of other awards. And I'm going to mention a few of the other awards that you might be interested in a little later in our presentation. But today, we're going to be primarily focused on the Goldwater Scholarship, which is our nation's most prestigious award for undergraduate STEM majors. It is managed by the Barry Goldwater Scholarship and Excellence in Education Foundation. It just rolls off the tongue. But this is actually a federal agency. It was created by an act of Congress in 1986 to honor Senator Goldwater for his almost 60 years of service to our country, both in the armed services, but also as a legislator. If you're in Arizona, and you've probably heard the name Goldwater more than times than you care to count. He was one of our first senators when we became a state, and sat in that seat for a good long time. There are numerous buildings named Goldwater. There's terminals at the airport named Goldwater. There's a brewery named Goldwater, which is pretty good if you're of age. One thing that's really cool is there aren't a whole lot of states that have multiple residents who have a national scholarship named after them. Arizona's got two. We've got the Goldwater Scholarship and the Udall Scholarship, which I think is pretty cool. I think we're probably one of the few schools that actually has pictures of our scholars with Senator Goldwater. And so if you go to the Wall of Fame, as people call it, where we have an honors hall in the Barrett Tempe campus right outside of our office on the second floor, there's a section just for Goldwater scholars. And if you look up in the oldest section in the top left, you'll see the first 3 or 4 Goldwater scholars in the 80s had their picture taken with Senator Goldwater, which is pretty neat. That's a brag point for sure. So it was created to help the United States maintain its competitive edge with regard to scientific research. So what it wants to do is encourage young STEM majors, people that show promise as future researchers, to stay the course, to get involved in research, to recognize and promote them, and make sure that they have access to good quality graduate education. It provides up to $7,500 per year for educational costs. I say up to because they're not going to over award you. It's going to be up to the amount that you actually need. Of course, the bigger benefit of Goldwater is that you receive incredible recognition. You're identified as one of just the few hundred strongest STEM majors, STEM students in the United States. Really helps to put you in a position where you are a prime candidate for other awards and fellowships, as well as admission to top tier PhD programs. You become part of the Goldwater network, which means that you have a listserv which provides information about other scholarships and internships and other opportunities of interest. They have a new podcast out, Twitter or X or whatever they want to call it now. The new director, new president John Mattei, has really brought Goldwater into the 2020s and really tried to create a lot of additional resources. One new one that it's so new I didn't even have a chance to put it on the presentation is that they've actually established a partnership with a test preparation company that actually is going to provide access to resources for people who are applying for MD, PhD. And so they can get free access to test prep information and other MD, PhD, MSTP preparation resources, which is pretty cool. So you'll notice as we're going through, there's pictures of many of our recent winners. These are real people. ASU students do win this award, and they win it all the time. So eligibility. Sophomore or junior, second or third year student, and that is determined by your expected date of graduation. So if you have 2 years of undergraduate study remaining, you are a sophomore. If you have only 1 year after this year of study remaining, you are a junior. It does not matter what your actual academic standing is based on the credits that you have. I get out ahead of this question because so many people come in with AP, dual credit, things like that. What they want to know is how long do you have left before you graduate? So many people will come in as a junior because of credits, but they're actually going to stay for 3 or 4 years to complete their degree plan, and that's what matters. You do need to intend a career in mathematics, natural sciences, or engineering, not the practice of medicine, policy, anything like that. They have a strong preference for students who are pursuing PhDs. And in fact, I've been advising on Goldwater for 18 years, and I don't think I've ever had an applicant who listed anything besides a PhD or an MD PhD. Not that you couldn't, but you've got to make a strong case. The website will list B or better average, and that's what was established in 1986. But call it inflation, call it increased competitiveness. I don't think I've seen a student with a B or better average win Fulbright, or excuse me, Goldwater in a long time. In reality, the majority of our nominees and winners are in the 3.9 and above category. Particularly, and that's unweighted because, with ASU plus grading, you can have a 4.3 GPA or something like that. If it's below perfection and at what I'm, absolute straight A's, that's not the end of the world. And typically what that means is you've gotten a B in, say, I don't know, human event, which is the most common B that we see for STEM majors, or, one of your non-major courses. If your grades below B are coming in your major courses, particularly your fundamental major courses, that's a bit of that's going to be a bit of a problem. Because again, you're not necessarily that you're a bad student, not necessarily that you don't have potential as a researcher. In fact, most of the PhDs and professors that I know weren't that good of students as undergraduates, myself included, at least not in terms of their GPA. They weren't as fastidious about it. But because of there's a very large, this is a national scholarship, right? There are thousands of people applying. There's an overabundance of people with very strong transcripts and strong research records. And so you've got to, it's just one more thing. So you do need to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. And of course, you have to be nominated by ASU. As I mentioned, it's a national award. So over 5,000 students are estimated to apply nationwide. And this is based on the number of applications that are opened and progressive at the various campuses. That resulted in a little over 1,200 nominees from 427 different institutions. I assume most of you are better at mental arithmetic than I am, and you can figure out what the average is. And 412 scholarships awarded. And again, you can figure out the selection rate yourself. But just eyeballing it, you can tell pretty quickly that getting a nomination is statistically the more difficult part than actually winning the award. ASU, for its part, averages about 2 Goldwater scholars per year. So if we're allowed to nominate in essence 4 per year, we're looking at about a 50-50, right? And so if you get that nomination, you're looking at probably about a 50% chance of success. We've had 43 scholars since 2006 when meaningful records were first kept. That puts us just shy of top 10 overall. We are ahead of several Ivy League schools and other very selective private East Coast schools, which I'm going to tell you truthfully, gives me a bit of satisfaction. And we see between 12 and 20 applicants per year, kind of in that range. It goes up and down, but generally in that range. And, and I would say, competitive applicants. There are a number of people every year who, they just kind of click on it and think, okay, this might be for me. Quick snapshot. I just out of curiosity, when I was updating this presentation for the year, I thought it would be interesting to see where our most recent, say, last 5 years worth of winners have ended up. I didn't include Chloe Leff, who won this past year because she's just finishing up her senior year now. But here's our last few years. As you can see, just glancing through there, Stanford, Princeton, Cambridge, Cornell, MIT, Harvard, heaven forbid, Arizona, UCLA. Some top shelf schools. These students are getting into top shelf programs. And if you look down the right column, what you'll notice too is a lot of NSF. So a lot of them are going on to win the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship. I've also included awards that we manage that they also won prior to Goldwater. So we see a couple had won Rise. A couple have actually gone on to other postgraduate fellowships, including Katie Paskovas, who got the Marshall Scholarship, Izzy Huckabee, who got the Fulbright and is going to go to the Philippines to help create astrophysics curricula in Philippine colleges, which is pretty cool. And read into the ASU major what you will. There is no particular trend, except that some departments are more energetic about encouraging their students to apply, or more faculty are more energetic about encouraging their students to apply. From the national level, there's no specific preference for one STEM field over another. The other thing I'll point out too is you'll notice out of this list, only 2 are pursuing MD PhDs. And again, that's not a preference either, but it's just not a common thing. And in fact, a lot of people who do elect MD PhD in their are thinking MD PhD in their sophomore year, yeah, maybe by the time it comes time to do it, have changed their mind on it. They tell us, Goldwater tells us, about 40% of the people who put down MD PhD on their Goldwater application actually end up doing that. And so again, there's no bias there, but you just have to have an explanation for why you would also want the medical training in addition to the PhD. So as I mentioned, each university and college in the United States is able to nominate up to 4 students per year. They recently added a wrinkle to this rule that if the applicant is a transfer student, either from a 2-year school or a transfer from another school, we get a bonus nominations. We can have up to 2 bonus nominations for transfer students as well. So if you are a transfer student, that does up your chances. And this was a move that Goldwater made. And in fact, many national scholarships, particularly federal national scholarships, are making because they realize that there's a gap there. Those transfer students are at a disadvantage because they aren't able to get continuity with faculty members, maybe not as much access to high-level research experiences, have trouble getting letters of recommendation, and many of them are non-traditional students. And so it's actually worked out quite well. We've been able to do this a couple times, and many of the winners in the last couple of years have been in this category as well. In terms of timeline, your campus deadline to submit an application to us is November 30. So essentially the end of the fall term. I would encourage you to plan your time accordingly, right? Because you know what the end of the semester can be like. You're finishing up projects, you're getting ready to prep for final exams, wrapping up your classes. So I'd encourage you to get started early and work at a steady pace up until November 30, as opposed to saying, well, I'll get to it that week. Our committee, who actually decides the nominations, is comprised of tenured track faculty members from a wide range of STEM departments. This is probably our most stable and longest running committee. They're very good at what they do. They've got an excellent eye for talent. And they're also very good at pinpointing very easy improvements that applications can make to go from good to great. So one of my favorite committees for sure. Nominations are selected on the basis of merit alone. We don't have quotas for gender identity. We don't have quotas for academic discipline or sophomores versus juniors or financial need or any of that. The decision is solely based on how likely is this student to win this award based on the criteria. So that's what we're looking for. The application process itself is fairly straightforward. And again, I will send you, and you can find it yourself. It's under the Apply Now tab on our website. But I will send this in detail to you in a follow-up email. But first thing you want to do is just visit the Goldwater Scholarship website just to review what they say about their criteria, the ins and outs. They've got a lot of good information there, give you a good sense of the mission of the program. And while you're there, if you decide that you'd like to go forward for this, you can submit a preliminary application. You don't need to email me to ask to do this. You don't need to send me anything else. Just submit the pre-app and it'll notify me that you've done so. And then I will review that information and follow up with you. So this is under the Apply Now menu item on the Goldwater website, and you'll just create an account, very quick question about your aspirations, potential recommenders, and we can go from there to decide if this is a conversation worth having. And that does sound kind of elitist, but that's not how necessarily we mean it, because Goldwater has a very specific mission. It has a very specific set of selection criteria, and maybe it's not a fit for you, but maybe there are plenty of other programs that are a fit for you. And we're going to talk about a few of them today. So after reading that, if I send the invitation for you to continue on in the application process, you'll send me your resume and unofficial transcripts. We'll have an intake meeting, kind of talk basic strategy for the appointment or for the scholarship itself. And then as quickly as you can after that, I would make contact with whomever you consider to be your faculty mentor, whether that's the PI in your research group or lab, the faculty member that you're closest with, even somebody, whoever you think is going to be able to offer you the most help in this process. I am not, my PhD is not in STEM, right? I'm a humanist. I work in literature and cultural studies. I understand the genre very well. I understand this audience very well, but I can't tell you if what you're saying is right. It's just not my discipline. So you need to have that guidance from somebody in your discipline, particularly when it comes to the research statement. So get them on board. and then start working on the other essays for the application. You can send those to me for review and feedback all throughout the process, before nomination, afterwards. And in the meantime, you'll also be nailing down your letters of recommendation. And then I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. And then you'll submit your application via the Goldwater site to us. And from there, we'll identify, hopefully, the nominees that we think have the strongest chance of winning. We will let you know by the end or shortly after the end of the fall semester, depending on when they're available to meet, but we typically do that during finals week or shortly thereafter. The committee will have suggestions for further revision, and we'll follow up again to talk about how to integrate those revisions. Typically, it's with more technical or formal aspects of the research essay, some other things. We may not be able to make our minds up by the end of the semester. Sometimes our committee has said, we definitely want to invite these 3, but then, these other 2 or 3 are pretty equal. Let's see how their grades come out for spring. So maybe they want to wait and see what happens, and make that decision at the start of the next term. But you will submit your application if you're nominated by the last Friday in January, which this year is the 26th. Now, the criteria, as I interpret them, are based on a variety of factors, and there's places throughout the entire application where these qualities appear. Obviously, they look, as I mentioned at the outset, they're looking for exceptional academic achievement. So a very high GPA that shows that you have good mastery of the fundamentals of theory, fundamentals of technical knowledge, just knowledge in your field, right? That's what they're looking for in terms of GPA. Now, a good GPA will get you into the club, but it's not going to guarantee you a date, because in addition to just that number and just sort of that level of performance, what they're also looking at is the curriculum that you're taking. Are you taking the right courses to prepare you for the plans that you've laid out? Our faculty committee is very good at sussing out if a candidate is taking the easier route in a particular major, or if they've noticed that you're a little weaker in the courses that matter most, or things like that. So maybe your particular career pathway would benefit from a dual major, or that you're combining interesting fields of study in a new way. So anyway, they want to see that you're challenging yourself as you're also performing at a high level. What's more important than that alone is that you also have clarity of vision. Like, you understand where you think you'd like to go as a researcher. The general topics and things that you'd like to research, the impact that you'd like to make, what types of programs you like to pursue as a doctoral student. They'd like to see that strong motivation. They'd like to know that this is something that you think about when you go to bed at night, and you resume thinking about as soon as you wake up. This is, and mainly not because they're looking for people with obsessive obsessions, but they'd like to know that you are motivated, that this is an interest that you are going to sustain in the long run and not wander off somewhere after having gotten the award. So as I mentioned, the career objectives need to be appropriate. And so what they're ideally looking for is somebody who pursues advanced graduate education and then dedicates their career to pure research. If you want to go into the private sector, that is technically possible, but not as attractive. If you wanted to go into more policy or hybrid fields, again, less attractive. If you want to go into medical practice or veterinary practice or anything like that, not as attractive. You do need to be involved in research to be competitive, either currently, previously. If you haven't yet been involved in undergraduate research, that's the first thing you can do to start making yourself competitive for the next cycle. But again, it's the passageway is too narrow for us to nominate somebody who hasn't yet been involved in undergraduate research. And achievements in research, right? So the assumption is that we're going to have more than 4 applicants who have been involved in undergraduate research and meet all these other criteria. And so then how do we start separating them out? One of the things that our committee looks for, co-authorships, publications, poster presentations, presentations at conferences, publications in student journals, co-authorships in national journals, the opportunity to participate in nationally selective programs like NSF-REU, Amgen, national laboratories, things like that, and including other fellowships like Dodd-Rise or things like that, where you've gone above and beyond what's available at ASU and expand your horizons that way. So that looks different in a lot of different fields, right? And so it's not a blanket sort of evaluation. The research essay, this is the largest single portion of the overall application, and it does receive a ton of attention from the readers. This is a 3-page statement that summarizes either a previous or future project, and in practice is usually both, right? I think what works best here is that you talk about where you see your research going in the future. What they want to see is if you can think and talk like a scientist. You know, you can demonstrate your background a little bit, what technical skills you have, and your interest to pursue a long-term career in research. So what would typically happen is you might lay out your pathway for the specific research that you hope to do, either in graduate study or beyond. And in doing so, you can't not also discuss the research that you've already done in this area, or what the foundation of this is that you've already accomplished. So really do look towards the future. I think that's important. And also, they don't want an essay about your group's future research. They want to know what you want to do. And therefore it's important to emphasize what individual contributions you made in your previous research. So again, the award doesn't go to your lab, it goes to you. We'll go more into the outline for this. And again, once you start working with a faculty mentor, PhD, postdocs, things like that, they can guide you through this pretty well. But in my mind, good grant proposal structure is universal. Every sort of proposal presentation of research or future research kind of follows the same pattern. You've got to start by defining what the problem is. And again, your audience here are broadly disciplinary. A few years ago, they shifted away from a geographic committee to a disciplinary committee. So if you're applying in chemical engineering, chances are good that most of the audience will be in chemical engineering, broadly speaking, or maybe some closely related engineering professors. These are all research faculty for the most part. They are research scientists, and so they are highly conversant in science. They understand how to lay out a problem and how to actually provide evidence to support claims in a scientific way, but they may not be in your particular subfield. So make sure you've defined your terms. What's the history of this problem? How did we get here? What have we tried to do to resolve it? And why hasn't that worked, right? That's what we call the complication. It's like, recently we've tried, many studies have concluded that blah, 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 blah. However, what remains misunderstood is, and that's where you come in terms of what you propose to do to resolve this complication. The bulk of the essay, at least 50% of the essay, if not more, should be devoted to you describing your methodology. What have you done already? What would you do in the future? How would you do this? What resources would you need? And how would you go about it? The last two parts oftentimes get overlooked. And so you would want to discuss what potential outcomes there are. And so if we get result A, we can conclude this. If we get result B, we can conclude that. And then the overall relevance, or so what, both globally in terms of what knowledge it contributes to the field, what future possibilities for research it opens, and how this relates to you and your overall plan. Letters of recommendation are really important in Goldwater. They're important in most fellowship, if not all fellowship applications, but in Goldwater, they matter a ton. Because again, this audience are primarily STEM faculty, research scientists, and what they would like to know is some insight from their colleagues, meaning your STEM faculty, as to whether, what kind of potential you have. So these letters need to be both credible and valid. So again, because of the audience, the people that they consider most credible are people like them. So they would expect to see letters from tenure track faculty. And that's why I say academic rank does matter. So as much as possible, we should see letters from professors, associate professors, or assistant professors. If they're a fancy professor who has like somebody's name next to it, or the word endowed in the title of that, that's a bonus right there. That's 300-point bonus for sure. There are many types of faculty at ASU. There's instructional faculty, there's research faculty, things like that. Good, not ideal, but that's a case-by-case scenario. Many undergraduate researchers are supervised directly by PhD students or postdocs. That's very common. They're the ones that probably know you the best. They're probably the ones that have done the most work with you. What we typically do in that situation is encourage them to work with the PI to write what we call a composite or hybrid letter, meaning that they will provide most of the content, they'll frame out this letter for the PI, but the letter will be signed by the tenure track faculty member who actually heads up this group. And sort of, giving their approval of the letter. And so this is what's commonly done. It's not unusual at all. When we meet, I'll provide you a little more coaching on how to effectively ask for letters of recommendation. But my simple advice is that first of all, give them plenty of time. 4 weeks, give or take, is 4 to 6 weeks is what's considered polite. Will they start working on it 4 weeks ahead of time? Absolutely not. But they know about it. It's integrated into their to-do list. It's not a surprise when you follow up a week before the deadline and say, hey, just wanted to find you. They say, oh yeah, I promised that weeks ago, and that will motivate them and they'll feel obligated. The best way to ask for a letter of recommendation is to ask, do you feel that you could write me a strong letter of recommendation for the Goldwater Scholarship? That's a lot different than saying, will you write me a letter for the Goldwater Scholarship? Because most faculty, they like to say yes, despite what it might seem like from your point of view. They like to say yes to students, and they will probably say, yeah. And if they say, yeah, that's probably not a great sign. You want them to say, absolutely. Now, I think I'm the right person to ask for this. Let's talk about your application. You want to give them an opportunity to bow out with grace, because if they don't feel comfortable doing this, if they don't feel that you're well qualified for it, then they're not a good choice for this letter anyway. You will provide them drafts of your materials as you're working through. We also have a memorandum of guidance that you should provide them. And I worry that not enough applicants give them this document because it lists the campus deadline, gives some pointers on how to write a strong letter for Goldwater. The Goldwater Scholarship, as you might recall, only needs 3 letters of recommendation. However, for the campus process, for the nomination process, you may request up to 5 letters. Why would we do this? Well, over time, it became clear to us that it's getting harder and harder every year for us to make our choices. It gets easier to make good choices when you have more data. And so we decided it would be helpful to have more data. Sometimes you're not sure as to who your strongest recommender might be. You might think this one faculty member doesn't care for you at all, but they actually wrote you a killer letter. Vice versa, the one that's the friendliest, it might also be the laziest and perhaps wrote you a mediocre letter. You can't know that because you should be waiving the rights to these letters. And you'll find out from us which 3 will actually function together as the strongest. A lot of times too, if you get 2 letters from faculty in the same research group or the same lab, those letters might say pretty much the same thing. So a little diversity is also helpful. So it helps us make a decision, gives you more flexibility. You've got some backups there. So we found that useful. You are not disadvantaged if you only get 3. If you've got 3 that are good, you feel good about it, that's fine. We aren't leaning towards a preference for people with 5 letters, so don't go around banging on doors just to get a perfunctory 4th or 5th letter. But if you're uncertain, if you've got more than 3 people you think could write a strong letter, by all means, please include them. So I'm going to open up for Q&A in just a moment, but before I do, I just wanted to flag for you a few other STEM-related opportunities that people in your position, if you're here listening to a presentation on the Goldwater Scholarship, should also be paying attention to. Many of you have probably heard of NSF REUs. These are research experiences for undergraduates, technically not a fellowship, but it is competitive entrance. Basically what this means is that anyone who gets a major NSF grant to support their research also has to have some of that budget designated to including undergraduates in the research effort. There are dozens of them at ASU. There are hundreds of them spread out throughout the United States. So this could be a good opportunity to spend the summer in someplace else besides Arizona, which is always a good idea. And you can find a project that aligns directly with your own interest, which is pretty cool. DOD Rise is pretty much exactly the same thing, except it takes place in Germany. So the German Academic Exchange Service has a program where they bring in undergraduate researchers from Canada, Britain, and the US to participate in summer research projects supervised by German doctoral students. We do manage this process. We have information sessions coming up. The application cycle is opening soon. We had 18 winners for this last year. It's become increasingly popular every year, and it's a great opportunity for STEM majors to get international experience, which is hard to come by sometimes, while also getting research experience, which is great. Similarly, there's a program from Fulbright Canada called the Mid-Tax Global Link And it's basically the same thing. There's a list of projects available. There's a matching process. If you're ranked highly, then you'll get a pick of projects, or they'll get a pick of you. It's sort of like a NFL draft pick. That deadline is approaching. I believe it's the 21st. So might be a little too close if you're just finding out about it to apply for this cycle. But you only need 1 semester of study remaining, so you can apply for this all the way up until senior year. The Boren Scholarship is actually a DoD program. It's for the study of critical languages, meaning languages that are of interest to U.S. foreign interest. But they do have a special dispensation for STEM majors because they recognize it's very difficult to interrupt a STEM curriculum to go, study Azerbaijani for a semester. So they allow STEM majors to do 8 to 10 week summer programs. And that's the only type of student they'll allow to do a shorter program. If you also find an international research experience in a place where has critical languages, you could do research through Boren as well. And then finally, if you're interested in environmental conservation, the Doris Duke Conservation Scholars Program is a 2-year program. So it's open to only first and second year students. So if you are a sophomore, that's something you could apply for, and you can talk to Shay Masterson about that. Looking ahead, junior year, the end of junior year is really when you should start thinking about what happens after graduation and start making plans and timelines for any fellowships applications. The big one, as you saw from our chart a few slides ago, is the NSF GRFP. This is a federal program that is intended to support top shelf graduate students who are going into research careers. We have someone in our office, Dr. Mitch Habza. This is his job, basically, is to apply, supervise and support NSF applicants. The Hertz Foundation Fellowship, very similar to NSF, much smaller program. There's really only like a dozen of these given a year as opposed to hundreds in NSF, but also a cool award. Churchill Scholarship is one that I advise on. We are in the cycle for that right now, but basically it's a 1-year fellowship that allow you to pursue a master's degree at Cambridge. One might wonder, why would you do a 1-year master's degree if I'm on my way to a PhD? That 1-year master's degree can be a research degree. So you can go and do research at Cambridge, which looks nice on a resume. We have many people who have gone to also pick up or expand their skill set. So they have a wonderful program in scientific computing, which teaches quant skills to people from all different disciplines, right? So if you realize, okay, I didn't get enough coding experience, maybe I want to do that, or maybe you just want to sharpen some other skills. We can only nominate 2 students of that per year. And so as you're entering senior year, that would be a great one to consider. If you're looking at the UK, the NIH OxCam, and this is for people that are more in the health sciences or biomedical research fields. Essentially what you would do is you'd be able, if you were awarded this, you would get support to complete your doctoral study at Oxford or Cambridge. And in the UK, a doctoral degree is only 4 years. In theory 3, but in practice it's 4, because you don't take any coursework. You just jump right into your research and then you learn what you need to learn along the way. They have an option for you to do only a PhD, or they have an option for you to do MD PhD. So if that's your plan, you get support from NIH, and you also get to do your rotations through NIH affiliated institutions. And then finally, Marshall and Rhodes. And I include that not because it's a STEM program, it's open to students in a wide variety of fields, but many of our STEM majors, many of our winners for this for Marshall and Rhodes have been STEM students, including Katie Paskovas, who was a mechanical engineering and global health double major. And so she got the Udall scholarship. She got the Goldwater scholarship. So she did the double Arizona. And then she went on to win the Marshall scholarship. And so she'll be doing 2 master's degrees, one at Cambridge and followed by one in water sanitation at Leeds. So very cool. So our website, onsa, onsa.asu.edu, is where you can find almost everything you need. If you'd like to explore these and other options, we do have a modest scholarship database that you can search through. You can limit it by field of study and year of study and things like that. If you want to go to any other info sessions related to these programs I mentioned, you can check out our calendar. Under the Apply Now tab, you can see all the deadlines for our major awards that we advise on. And as well, if you're interested in reading more about the previous winners for these, under the About Us, there's a news story archive. If you haven't subscribed to the bulletin, you should do that. Again, that's the best way to find out about upcoming events and deadlines. And as well, you can schedule appointments with us from the website as well. So you don't need to email us to find out when we're available. Our booking system is there for you to use. So I will pause there, allow you to catch your breath a little bit, because I know that was quite an information dump. And I'm happy to field any questions that you have about Goldwater or anything else. You can just pop them in the chat or unmute yourself, whatever you're most comfortable with. No? Crushed it? All right. Well, I hope I've given you enough information to get you started. If you do think of a question that you wanted to ask, feel free to email me, kyle.mox, M-O-X, @asu.edu. And as I said, hopefully today, perhaps tomorrow morning, I will follow up via email with everyone who registered for this session, and include a link to this presentation, as well as some other resources to help get you moving. So I appreciate the time and attention, and I look forward to hopefully to talking with one of you. Oh, and before I let you go, we did get a question. So question is, yeah, I've got good grades overall, and then I had 1 C+ in 2 major classes. Can that be a huge issue? That's something we probably need to talk through, because it's going to depend on a lot of other factors. We would also want to see that in addition, in exclusion of any sort of dips that we have in our grades, that we also have a strong research record, that the letters of recommendation are going to be strong, and if it's going to be enough to offset that. And as well, there's opportunities in the application to address that if need be. And so it's a very strong, probably not, but again, it depends on a lot of things. Definitely worth discussing, right? Don't if you're worried about GLIPs on your transcripts or anything like that, don't worry about it just yet. We can talk through it. And the question is too, this is a good one too, research based in courses. Oh, that's a great point. So as Carly points out, she says, well, yeah, but the research I did is based in the courses that I didn't do that well in. Can that help balance? I'm like, absolutely, because as I mentioned at the outset, most accomplished researchers were not 4.0 students as undergrads. Maybe they were, because they were just sort of the people that could blow through it, but most of them were not. And so they understand, that things happen. I've had plenty of students where, they did their best work in the class where the faculty member gave them a C, right? And so that's, that could add a nice wrinkle to that as well. So again, all of this is in context. It's all looked at holistically. It's not one single part of the application is going to win or tank it, right? A good question. Worth exploring, right? So if you've got all the other parts of it and you're just worried about one thing, I would encourage you all to do the pre-application, and then we can see where that's at. All right, last call. Any other questions? Awesome. All right, well, you all have a great rest of your day. Look forward to an email from us in the near future, and I hope your term's going well. And again, can't wait to talk to you about these and other opportunities. So have a good one. Thank you so much.